Today we're going to talk about network-related files and commands for Ubuntu 20.10, which is also known as a Groovy. The version that I have installed here on a VirtualBox is a server version, and I don't have graphical mode in it. And also I'm focusing towards server administration on this channel. I would like to do as much as command line as possible. But before we jump into the network configuration, let's get familiar with some of the commands for the hostname, hostname settings, commands, and system files related to the hostname configuration. Let me log in as a root because it will be doing a lot of system commands and changing the files, which needs root access. And I might forget to use sudo command, and which will make me do things all over again. So instead of wasting time, let me go to the root access. And if you do not have root access enabled when you install the system, you can type sudo su space hyphen. Then it will ask you for your password. And when you supply your password, you will go into the root mode, and you can just change, you can supply passwd and then change the password. I don't have my password, so I'm not going to change the password. It's a good practice to use non-root account if you're new to the Linux and trying to figure your way into the server administration and Linux administration. But if you're already experienced user or already working as a Linux admin, then I'm sure you know that root and the sudo, they both work in the same way. It doesn't matter if you use sudo or root. When you delete files, you just delete it. There's no way getting it back. So you just have to be really careful when you're in the root mode. And the same way when you're using sudo will just give you the same access as root. You don't have to keep typing sudo command every time you want to use root access. So that's my opinion about root. Let's see the Ubuntu version that I have. So it's Ubuntu 20.10 Groovy. So we'll start with the command to display the hostname, which is simply hostname. And then if you type hostname space capital I, it gives you the IP address for the hostname. And if you type hostname CTL, then it gives you a little more information: hostname, machine ID, Oracle, kernel version, and architecture. You can also type hostname CTL status. It's the same. It gives you the same output, so status or without status. And now if you want to change the host name of the machine, the command you will type is hostname CTL set hostname and the new hostname. Let's say my new hostname is command line hyphen new. And if I type hostname now, that will be the new hostname. So this command hostname CTL will set the name into this file. So it wrote into that file. And another file that you want to look at is the etc host file. So here, if your IP is static, you might want to change it here. I got the IP address dynamic, so it's giving me that local IP address, and then X out of it. Then you should be all good. Okay, now let me see what is the IP address again. 172.16.10.27 is given by my router. You can still use ifconfig to display your Ethernet and IP address, netmask, broadcast, and MAC address, and also some loopback information. But since last few years, everyone is focusing towards the cloud, and that move has developed and adapted new IP tools to match with the cloud requirements. So if you noticed here, if you are used to seeing ET at 0 for Ethernet 1, ET at 1, 2, you notice the Ethernet device name here is ENP0S3. So the latest distribution, including Red Hat, Ubuntu, CentOS, uses this kind of new predictable network interface names rather than the traditional names like ETH0, ETH1, or WLAN 0. So EN stands for Ethernet, and if you add a wireless, it will start with WL for wireless. And P0 is for the PCI location or the bus number, and S3 in my case is a serial number or the slot number. So ENP0S3 is it basically means it's Ethernet network peripheral device with the serial number 3 connected to the bus number 0. So that's all. So there are a few commands, IP commands that you can use to configure and monitor your network address or monitor your routing table or the link state of network devices. So if you use IP-addr address command, you have some options: add, change, delete, flush. So you can actually add the IP address using this command. If you do IP address so, it'll give you the IP address of the interface right here, 172.16.10.27, which we also saw up there using ifconfig. Broadcast and the subnet mask is the /24, which is the same as 252.250. And if you do IP route so, then it will just give you the route table. You can simply do IP route as well without the so, and then you can do IP link. So it's this shows you the hardware link state of the hardware Ethernet device, and if you have any other devices. So the IP address that we saw is from DHCP configuration, and we'll look into the static assignment. But before that, let's look into the IP commands and see how we can use it to assign temporary IP and monitor the route and device link state and all that. So let's flush the IP address from that I got from the DHCP, and the command to flush is IP address flush ENP0S3, which is the name of the device, Ethernet device. And then if you do ifconfig, our old command, see the IP address is gone. You can also use IP A. This is a shortcut for IP address. So IP address is gone. There's also a new command you can type, networkctl status, gives you a little more information, DNS and the state of the card and what actually happened to the Ethernet device. So Q for the quit. And since this interface is using IP address from DHCP, actually what I can do is I can set the interface down, and I can set interface up. That will also give you the new IP address. So if I do IP link set device ENP0S3 down, and if I do network CTL status, so DHCP lease lost, ifconfig, no devices because it's down. Now if I do IP link set device ENP0S3 up, now if I do network CTL status, should give me the IP address. There on the address 172.16.10.27, and it's routable, DNS address, and some log about DHCP. Let me clear the screen. I have config one more time, 10.27. So let's flush IP again and give the temporary IP address using IP address command. So IP address plus ENP0S3, verify, no IP address. Okay. Now we can use IP-addr add, and the IP address we are going to use is 172.16.10. Actually, let me go to the Windows side of it and keep pinging that IP address. 172.16.10. Let's see, the 3 was free. And then come back here. 3/24 device enp0s3. So since we're in the same network, that should be pingable now. There you go, it started pinging. And can do IP address. So it will show IP address for all interface. If you just interested on enp0s3, you can do IP address, so device enp0s3. Just give you the information about that device. So IP route, there is no routing information that we have added. Now we can add IP route, add default gateway via 172.16.10.1. And now if I do IP route, so the default gateway is through enp0s3 and 10.1. Network CTL status gives me the gateway address and everything. Okay, and IP link, so the status. And if you do IP -s space link, so it'll give you the packet information too. Send, receive packet information. So that's a command. And if you want to assign a DNS server, then there's a file result. So you just have to add name server in this file. But anything you add on this file, it's just a temporary. Name server, let's see, 8.8.8.8. Exit out of it. One quick note about this file. When we use IP flush command to flush the IP configuration using the IP command, it does not clear the contents of this file. You just have to remove or modify the entry manually. Or reboot, which will cause this file, which is actually a symbolic link for, clear the screen. So when you reboot, it will actually cause the content of this file to be rewritten by systemd resolved. So let me show you, that file is the symlink for file inside run systemd and resolved. And when you reboot, the resolved will configure this file automatically. We can also verify that by doing, let's say right now, I have this at the end, name server 8.8.8.8. Let me quickly apply this command, netplan apply. Watch what happens. It'll get the DNS IP address, 10.27. And now if I go to, clear the screen, if I go to resolve, see that line, the last line, name server 8.8, it's gone because it rewrote the file with the DHCP configuration. So traditionally, there is this resolve.conf file used to be a static file where we would update name server manually, or the DHCP client hooks would update for us if we're using DHCP. But now, since the introduction of Netplan on Ubuntu, which we'll talk about briefly in a moment, it configures the systemd resolved service and generate the list of name server and domains and put that into resolve.conf file. And if you look at this file, systemd resolve.conf file, that's where your name servers are. And this is the exact name server we get when we do ctl status c208.67. So Ubuntu uses a systemd, networkd, and systemd resolved to read the information from the configuration file and set up the interface with the IP address or the DNS, which you can also use in Kali Linux, but it is disabled by default. Kali still uses the traditional files for network configuration, which is located inside network, this file, etc network and interface. It's nothing in there in Ubuntu because they have moved to the different scheme of applying network configuration. So if you do systemctl status system D network D, this one, and resolve D. So these are the two files which dictates the network configuration and DNS configuration. So when we ran netplan apply, it send the command to these services and ask them to rewrite the file based on the configuration, which we'll see when we go to assign a static IP address. And there's also one command, networkctl status will give you IP address and DNS and everything, but there's one command, resolve ctl status gives you the DNS information. So this is the service that will configure the DNS. Since all this setup that we done using IP commands so far is a non-persistent, if you want persistent settings, then there are separate commands in configuration file, which we'll discuss now, and that's how we assign the static IP address. So a couple of useful commands before we move into that configuration. lshw list all the hardware, and if you just want to see the network hardware, then ls class lshw space -class space network, and it'll just give you the information about your network card, Ethernet, logical name, vendor, and everything. So let's flush the IP address and set the interface down so that we can assign an IP address statically. IP address plus enp0s3. You can do just enp, or you can use device. And then let's set the interface down. P0s3 down. So no more devices, no more IP addresses. Now we're all set for the IP address assignment. And starting with Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, they switched to the Netplan for configuration of network interfaces. Before, they used to do etc network and interface file. So Netplan is based on YAML configuration. So that makes the configuration process very simple, easy to understand. It might be the move to align to their cloud presence using OpenStack and the use of container and other technology for the cloud infrastructure. But so Netplan has replaced the old configuration file that we just saw, etc network and interfaces. So they replaced this file, which Kali still uses. And they go to this file, etc netplan, and there is a YAML configuration file. So this is by default 00-installers config.yaml. So this is where we defined our static IP address. So here, if we go right now, Ethernet's ENP0 and DHCP true. So that means our DHCP, that's how the DHCP is getting IP address. So if we want static IP address, now we do addresses 172.16. This is the syntax of YAML file. And then let's do 4/24, which is the subnet, and gateway 4. 4 just means it's IPv4 IP address. 172.16.10.1 and name server. So this is where we define name servers instead of a resolve.conf file. So when we write name servers here, and when you run net apply command, netplan apply command, it will rewrite the DNS into that file. So let's do 8.8.8.8. So we can see the change from our already configured OpenDNS. So this is it. Ethernet 0 address, IP address, gateway, and name servers. So let me save it. And the command to apply this configuration is netplan apply. Very simple. Now if I do ifconfig, see it got the IP address 10.4, and we can ping that IP address now here. See the O is pingable now. And if we do network CTL status, we have 10.4 routable, and see the DNS information is now 8.8.8.8 and 8.4. And we can also do resolve CTL status, giving me the new IP address, I'm sorry, new DNS address. And if we do IP route so, then the default gateway is there. And if we go to run systemd resolve and resolve.conf file, it should have the new DNS server. We had to rate.67 before. Now it rewrote the file and changed the DNS to this new server settings. So this is all. This is how you set host name, temporary IP address, and static IP address in Ubuntu 20.10. This is the new kind of commands and the files to deal with network configuration starting 18.04. And my version is 20.10 and use the same command. So I hope you will find this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.